Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be working on replacing the rear shocks in my 2001 Dodge Ram 1500. These shocks probably have about 80 or 90,000 miles on them, so it's time for some new ones. And this is a pretty simple project that anybody like me, who's sort of a shade tree mechanic, can do with a few simple tools. So I thought I'd just make a quick video during the process. So let's go ahead and get started. First things first, you can see I'm under the rear of the vehicle now, and of course there's one of our rear shocks here, and it runs up and bolts up to the frame up here above the spare tire, and the other shock runs the opposite direction in front of the rear axle. It's kind of dark up there, should have turned my flash on, but anyway, you can see it sort of go up there and attach to the frame in front of the axle. So first things first, we're going to need to remove the spare tire here, and it's held in place with a winch mechanism. You can see the clip, or whatever you want to call it, that holds it up here, and it's actually operated through the rear bumper area right below the tailgate. You'll see a little opening here with a hex fitting, and it's operated with the jack handle. So I've got the jack hooked up to it now, and we just need to loosen this counterclockwise like that, and the tire will come down. You can see it dropping, and of course once we get it low enough, you just simply take this clip and pull the tire up, take the tension off the cable, and then you can, I guess, tilt the clip 90 degrees and shoot it up through the hole in the center of the wheel. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I don't think I can maneuver the camera and do all that at the same time, but you get the gist. So once we get the tire down, then we'll move along. Let me get this out of the way and I'll show you what we're working with. Okay, I've got the spare tire dropped down now and removed. You can see the cable and the winch mechanism. I simply, like I said, I just tilted this up like that, and I was able to feed it through the hole in the center of the wheel. So I'll probably run this back up now to get it out of the way while I work. And then, excuse me, stupid pollen. Anyway, we've got plenty of room to work now. So we can see the top shock mount here on the driver's side, and I believe it's got a clip attached to the back side, sort of like an anti-spin clip, which will be helpful because it's going to be tough to get a wrench or anything on this side of the bolt. So it looks like I should just be able to put a socket on this side and spin it out, and that clip will keep the nut on the other end from spinning. So that's nice to see. And of course, then we'll be able to remove the bolts at the bottom. There's nothing in the way here, so we can get a wrench on either side of that. And then we'll move along to the other side over here. That one may be a little tricky to get to up top. You can see the bolt there, and of course the bottom will be pretty simple. Before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and spray everything with some PB plaster, let it soak for a few minutes, and hopefully break free, help the bolts break free. So let me do that. I'll give it a few minutes and then we'll get started on taking things apart. Okay, I'm getting started on the shock on the driver's side, and I was able to get this nut started. I had to spin it almost a whole revolution for that clip over here to spin around and finally rest on the frame. That'll keep the nut from turning on the backside. So I'm using I'm using a 22mm socket in my breaker bar, and it's a little loose, so it's probably actually a standard size. I just don't have anything bigger than 3/4 in standard. So this is working. Hopefully I won't round off this nut. So anyway, I'm just going to finish taking this out. Took some force, but like I said, that clip on the backside is going to help big time. So really it's just a matter of undoing this now, and then we'll move to the bottom mount. Alright, I got the top nut off. Let me show you what there's the nut with that clip attached. So it was on there tight, so I just had to use my breaker bar to spin it most of the way off, and then I switched over to a ratcheting socket. But you know, it's not that hard really. So I'm going to leave the top bolt just stuck through the shock until I get the bottom loose, and that way it'll just suspend off the top bolt. So now I just need to move on down here to the bottom, and again I'll use probably a breaker bar on one side and a wrench on the other. I'll hold the nut on this side with an adjustable wrench and spin off the bolt on the other side, and pull that bolt out, and then I'll pull the top bolt and we'll move on to the other shock. So let me get this out and I'll show you a quick shot of removing the shock. Okay, I'm working on the bottom bolt and just wanted to show a quick clip of method I'm using to get this off. I ended up putting a crescent wrench on the outside bolt, I guess the head of the bolt, and I've spun the nut on this side around, which the head of the bolt wanted to spin with it. So I put the crescent wrench on and spun it until the arm of the wrench just hit up underneath the axle, and it's going to function exactly like that clip on the top shock mount. So now I can just put my socket or my breaker bar on this side, spin it, and the head of the bolt's going to stay stationary. So anyway, just a little quick tip. It's pretty common sense. I think most people would probably do the same thing anyway, but anyhow, without an extra set of hands, this is going to be the fastest and easiest way to do it. So I'm going to spin this off, and I'll show you a quick clip of me pulling the shock out, and then we'll move to the other side. Alright, so I've got the bottom bolt loose now. I can go ahead and remove it. The shock is free on the bottom. Now, I just want to go ahead and remove the top bolt, and we'll be able to take the whole shock out from the truck. So I can just pull this out, and now the shock is free. And as evidenced by the fact that it pretty much just collapsed when I pulled it out, you can tell that it's probably beyond its useful life. So it's about time I'm doing this. Alright, so we've got the driver's side done. Now we can move on to the passenger side.
Okay, I've moved on to the passenger side, and I wanted to get it started before I started filming. So I've been messing with this thing for a while now, and it's given me a hard time. I've sprayed it with PB Blaster probably 10 times and let it soak for a couple hours. And I did go out and I finally just bit the bullet and went out and got the correct size socket. It's a 21mm nut, so that's going to make the job a lot easier. But anyhow, what I've ended up doing is I'm attacking it from the rear of the vehicle. There's not a lot of room to work with from the front side of the axle. I'm at the rear looking forward, and I just couldn't get good leverage on my breaker bar, and the nuts on the back side facing the frame rail, and it was just tight. So plus I just couldn't get the strength I needed from that direction. So what I ended up doing, and it's working, you can see my breaker bar is here, and the socket is attached to the bolt head up top, and I ended up laying down behind the axle and putting my foot up there like that on the breaker bar handle and pushing, and you can see I finally broke it loose, and I'm able to work it pretty easily now. So that worked for me. Hopefully if you try this you won't have the bolt rusted on so badly, but again, these shocks have not been changed in a while, so the bolts were pretty rusted, In fact, I realized the threads on the driver's side shocks were kind of screwed up. I really should get some new bolts, but they're not an off-the-shelf item. They're like 10.9, you know, like high-strength steel, so they're something I'd have to probably order online. So I ended up just taking a triangle-shaped file and kind of fixed the threads where they were boogered up. Got them to work enough that I can get the nuts back on there. But anyhow, so I'm going to get this top off. I've actually already loosened the bottom. I did that the same way I did the other side. Put my breaker bar on the nut and put my crescent wrench on the other side and just spun it. And of course the crescent wrench will knock up under the axle and keep the head of the bolt from turning. So anyway, I'm going to finish spinning off this nut up here. It's going to take me a while because I can only do maybe a quarter turn at a time. Then I have to reset the breaker bar. But again, it's got this metal bracket or clip, whatever you want to call it here, that keeps the, you know, the nut is welded to that, so it keeps the nut from spinning, which is good. This would be impossible if you had to have one wrench on the nut and one on the head of the bolt. At least it'd be impossible for one person to do it. I think you could do it with the second set of hands. But anyway, let me get this nut off, and then we'll pull the bottom bolt and we can finally start putting some new shocks in. Alright, I finally got the top bolt loose, so I can go ahead and pull it out. Actually, let me take the bottom one out first. That'd be smarter. There we go. Now I can get the top one. And there we go. Shock's out, thankfully. Alright, so let me get off front of the truck, get the new shocks out of the boxes, and we'll get the hardware ready and get them ready to put back. Okay, so we're ready to put the new shocks in. The shocks I'm going with are Rancho 5000 series, specifically the RS 5198 for the rear. And the contents of the box are, of course, the shock itself, a boot to protect the piston, a decal, which you can choose to put on if you want. I guess I'll put it on. And then a zip tie to secure the lower side of the boot around the body of the shock. It's kind of a cheesy solution, but I mean, I guess a hose clamp would be a little bit more permanent, but I guess I'll go with this for now. So I guess first things first, I'm going to slip this boot over the end of the shock. Looks like there's a little channel here. See if I can get the camera to focus. Sort of a slot or a groove there in the top. It should fit onto this collar, and again the zip tie holds the bottom edge. So let me get them both prepped and get back under the vehicle, and we'll bolt them in. Alright, I'm ready to start putting the shocks back in now. I'm going to start with the driver's side. It'll probably be a little bit easier, so figured I'd find my stride with the first one and then move to the other side. So, got my shock all ready to go. This side goes down. I think what I'm going to do first is slide the upper end in and slide the bolt through it and suspend it, and then I can move down to the bottom and adjust the length until the bolt slides through. So unfortunately I won't be able to do that with just one hand, but that's the idea. Get the bolt in the top, slide the one in the bottom, and then tighten the nuts down. So, and of course we want to make sure we use that anti-spin clip on the top, you know, on the back side, so that it swings around, hits the frame, and keeps you from having to put a wrench on the back side. So just like we took it off. So let me get this in place. I'll show you real quick once I'm done, and then we'll move to the other side.